I think most people hear words like blockchain, crypto, tokenization, AI, and tend to switch off. And I get it, because for too long this stuff has been explained badly. Too much jargon, too much hype, and in my opinion, not enough clarity. I'm Oliver. I've spent over a decade working inside financial services, fintech, and digital assets, and I've generally had the privilege to work with some of the most forward-thinking firms in this space. But throughout this time, one thing has always stood out to me, and that is the general lack of awareness in wider society of the genuinely transformative impact of these technologies and how they will affect most, if not all of us, throughout our lifetime. There is so much more to it than just Bitcoin and making speculative crypto investments. So I started this channel to make this knowledge accessible. I think for too long this information has been difficult to access and reserved only for those in certain roles and companies. What I want to do is to cut through the noise and give you the intelligence and information that actually matters, as best I can in plain English. So, let's get into it. Buying a house in the UK is one of the most stressful experiences a person can go through. I'm not saying that to be dramatic, it's just true. The average UK property transaction takes between 12 and 16 weeks, and in my experience, often could be longer. It involves solicitors, surveyors, mortgage brokers, estate agents, and a stack of paperwork that would make a Victorian bureaucrat proud. At the heart of all that complexity, at the very centre of the whole process, is one question that should be simple. Who owns this property? You would think that in 2026, with all the technology we have, answering that question would be instant. It's not. It involves searches, checks, certificates, and a process that has barely changed in decades. But something is changing. HM Land Registry, the UK government body that holds the record of who owns every property in England and Wales, has been running a blockchain pilot, a proof of concept that could fundamentally change how property ownership is recorded, verified and transferred. Today I want to explain what that pilot actually did, what it means for anyone who owns, buys or sells property in the UK, and why this is more significant than most people realise. Let me give you the simplest possible way to understand what blockchain property titles would change. Think about the difference between a paper receipt and an automated bank statement. A paper receipt proves you paid for something, but it can be lost, damaged or forged. And if there is a dispute, you have to find the receipt, present it and hope the other party accepts it. An automated bank statement is different. It is a permanent, instantly verifiable record. It cannot be lost, and if there is a dispute, the record speaks for itself. Right now, owning a property in the UK is closer to holding a paper receipt than an automated bank statement. The Land Registry holds the records, but verifying them, transferring them and proving ownership involves a process that is slow, expensive and vulnerable to fraud. A blockchain property title is essentially the automated bank statement, a permanent, instantly verifiable record of who owns what. Now that's extremely difficult to forge. It can be transferred in minutes rather than months, and that every authorised party, the buyer, seller, the solicitor, the mortgage lender, can see in real time. That is what HM Land Registry was testing. Let me tell you what the pilot actually involved, because the detail is interesting. Working with Consensus, one of the leading blockchain infrastructure companies, the Land Registry created what they called a title token, a digital representation of a UK property title on the Ethereum blockchain. The pilot demonstrated the full end-to-end process, including topics such as verifying owners, issuing tokens, and onboarding investors. It gave the regulator a good view of all on-chain data in real time. What that means in plain English is that they could show you that you could take a UK property title, represent it as a digital token on a blockchain, and give regulators a transparent view of the entire process, all on a government-backed proof of concept. This was not a startup experiment, this was a UK government-backed proof of concept, and I think that distinction does matter. The implications go well beyond just making the conveyancing process faster. Let me give you 3 implications that go beyond just faster house buying. First, property fraud. The UK loses hundreds of millions of pounds every year to property fraud. Title fraud, where criminals fraudulently transfer ownership of properties, is a significant and growing problem. A blockchain title that is tamper-proof and instantly verifiable makes this kind of fraud dramatically harder to execute. Second, fractional property investment. Right now, for the majority of people, investing in UK property requires significant capital. In practice, the majority of people's investments will be the price of the property they purchase, or at least the amount of money they can raise for the mortgage deposit. Tokenised property titles open the door to fractional ownership. Investing £1,000 in a share of a commercial property could be accessible to anyone. Third, international investment. UK property is one of the most sought after asset classes in the world, but international investors face enormous friction in accessing it. Tokenised titles tradable on a blockchain dramatically reduce that friction. This would mean more international capital flowing into UK property, importantly with full regulatory oversight. Quick pause. If you are finding this useful, please hit subscribe. Every week I cover exactly this kind of shift in plain English. It really helps the channel grow. Back to it. If you are a homeowner, the most immediate implication is a faster, cheaper, less stressful buying and selling process. The 12 to 16 week conveyancing timeline exists largely because of the manual verification and transfer processes that blockchain would automate. That timeline could shrink dramatically. If you are a solicitor or a conveyancer, this is the most significant change to your practice area in decades. The mechanical parts of conveyancing, the searches, the verification, the transfer, are exactly the parts that blockchain automates. The judgment, the advice, the complex structuring, that remains very human work, but the shape of the job does change significantly. If you're a property developer or investor, tokenised property titles open up new financing structures and new investor pools. The ability to issue fractional ownership stakes to a global investor base with full regulatory oversight changes how property development can be financed. And lastly, if you're an estate agent, understanding tokenised property, I think, is going to become a professional competency. The clients who are early adopters of this technology will expect their agents to understand it too. Now, the honest version. The land registry pilot was a proof of concept. It was not a live product or something that you can use today. The gap between a successful proof of concept and a nationwide rollout is significant. There are very real questions to resolve. For example, how does blockchain titles interact with existing property law? What happens when there's a dispute? How do you handle the transition from the existing system? These aren't quick and easy questions to answer. But I think the fact that the land registry did run this pilot at all is significant. It means the question is not whether blockchain property titles are possible, it is when and how they get implemented. And the professionals who understand the technology before that implementation arrives will be the ones who fundamentally shape how it works. Look, this stuff is moving fast, and the gap between the people who understand it and the people who don't is only getting wider every day. That's why I'm here, and that's why this channel exists. If you found this episode useful, then please hit the like button. It takes 2 seconds and it helps more people find exactly the type of content we've been discussing today. Now, if you want to keep up with what's happening more broadly, then please subscribe. Every week I put out content that discusses exactly the kind of shifts that we've been talking about today. If you want to go deeper than YouTube allows, then please head over to our website, linked in the description below. You can book a bespoke coaching session directly and over time access structured training materials. No hard sell, no spam, just the right conversation and the right information at the right time. I'm Oliver and this is Read Between the Blocks. I'll see you next week.